Every morning, before the twin suns had even crested the horizon of the quiet blue planet that humans had stumbled upon by chance decades ago, he rose from a narrow cot in the small, hidden settlement, the metal floor cool beneath his bare feet, and began his work. He had not been trained for heroics, nor had he been chosen for some grand purpose written in galactic prophecies. He was, by all accounts, ordinary. A human who had survived the collapse of his own home world and carried forward with the simple, almost sacred intention of nurturing life where it could thrive. In the shadowed alleys and hidden gardens of the settlement, he moved with practiced precision, selecting fruits, rations, and synthesized proteins from crates that hummed quietly, assembling lunches not for recognition, not for reward, but for the hungry alien children who had become his silent companions over years of shared mornings, quiet afternoons, and evenings of cautious laughter. The children, a motley assembly of species, shapes, and colors that human eyes were not designed to categorize, awaited him each day with anticipatory eyes that glowed softly in the dim morning light, their small hands reaching toward the baskets as if instinctively understanding that nourishment from him meant survival, security, and more importantly, a sense of stability in a galaxy that had always seemed to them overwhelmingly chaotic. He did not question why they came to trust him, why their voices rose in chirps, whistles, or harmonic vibrations that sometimes resonated like music. He simply moved, a measured rhythm to his actions that seemed almost ritualistic, pouring steaming liquids into bowls that no human tongue could normally tolerate, cutting fruit with hands that had grown calloused from decades of work, folding nutrients into compact containers that even the smallest alien appendages could manage, all while his own thoughts remained anchored to the faint hum of distant starships and the whispered rumors that this planet, quiet and unremarkable as it appeared, was far from ordinary in the eyes of the galactic order. Every action he took carried weight he did not yet perceive. Every smile he offered to a child carried consequences that would ripple through the stars in ways he could not yet imagine. He had no idea that the mother of these children, once a ruler whose name alone had commanded fleets and extinguished empires, had chosen to remain hidden in the guise of a scholar, retreating to the quiet confines of her domestic duties to observe her progeny and the humans who cared for them, measuring the potential of the species not by their weapons or their fleets, but by the integrity, discipline, and compassion they displayed when left to nurture life rather than dominate it. While he chopped vegetables with a rhythm born from habit and necessity, the mother watched from an orbital observatory cloaked by the light of a nearby gas giant, her consciousness extending across encrypted sensor networks that humanity had never designed to detect, scanning his every movement, noting the subtle, almost imperceptible adjustments he made when a child faltered, the way he shifted the seating arrangements to avoid confrontation, and the quiet encouragements whispered when fear overtook the smallest of them. Across the galaxy, this was invisible, a moment that would later be recounted in hushed tones as the genesis of a chain of events that no council, no fleet, no strategy had accounted for. But in that small, seemingly insignificant kitchen, the foundation for a human-alien alliance of immeasurable influence was being laid, not with proclamations, not with force, but with patience, empathy, and the unwavering commitment to see life flourish even when the universe itself seemed indifferent. He hummed a tune that had no origin, a melody composed from years of solitary reflection and quiet perseverance. And in doing so, he infused the meals with something far beyond nutrients, a promise, almost imperceptible, that life, when tended carefully, could be a shield against the violence that waited silently beyond the atmosphere, that kindness, when executed with precision and care, could become a weapon more formidable than any plasma cannon or orbital bombardment. The alien children ate in silence, not because they were told to, but because instinct had taught them to savor, to respect,
and to understand that the hands that fed them were also the hands that would one day lead, protect, and if necessary, fight with unwavering resolve for their survival. He never knew the wars that had been fought decades before his arrival, the rebellions quelled, the civilizations erased in the blink of a galactic eye. Nor did he realize that his quiet mornings, repeated endlessly, were weaving the human capacity for strategic compassion into the very fabric of the galaxy, a thread that would later bind empires, shift allegiances, and redefine the way power was measured among the stars. And so he worked, day after day, slicing, mixing, pouring, arranging, each action small but deliberate, each gesture unnoticed but monumental, unaware that with every meal served, with every child nurtured, humanity's true legacy was quietly, invisibly taking shape, a legacy that would soon awaken the galaxy to a force that wielded neither cruelty nor conquest, but an understanding so profound that even rulers long accustomed to obedience would tremble before it.
As the days turned into weeks and weeks into months, the rhythm of his life became a quiet cadence that resonated far beyond the hidden settlement. Each movement, each preparation of meals became sharper, more precise, almost instinctual, as if the hands themselves remembered centuries of forgotten human resilience, a legacy of survival etched not in monuments or archives, but in muscle memory and attention to detail. He began noticing subtle cues in the children, the way their eyes tracked motion, the rapid flutter of alien appendages when uncertainty arose, the faint hum of energy in some whose bodies carried bioluminescent signals of emotion and intelligence far beyond what casual observation could detect. With each gesture, he adapted, not consciously planning strategy, yet unconsciously creating a framework of anticipation and response, a model of care that mirrored the logic of battle and coordination, yet rooted entirely in nurturing rather than conflict. Across the settlement, hidden observation nodes recorded his every action, micro-expressions, posture shifts, timing, the way he distributed resources based on need, fairness, and subtle hierarchy of urgency. The mother, observing from orbit, saw patterns forming in ways that no conventional education could teach. Humans acted without ego, without hesitation, with adaptability that no artificial intelligence or alien commander could have predicted. What seemed mundane, a bowl filled with food, a comforting touch, a glance of reassurance, was in truth the training ground of leadership, the preparation of instinct, the testing of patience and precision. And while the children accepted his actions with trust, laughter, and curiosity, each interaction subtly reinforced the human principles of observation, rapid response, and emotional intelligence combined with tactical discipline, the combination that would later allow them to confront fleets of hostile alien forces not with rash violence, but with calculated, overwhelming efficiency. It was during these quiet moments that the first whispers of the galaxy's larger presence touched their settlement. Signals from distant scanners, faint but detectable, hinted at approaching fleets, movements in the space lanes above that were more than routine, anomalies that no local orbital pattern could explain. He noticed nothing outwardly alarming. His focus remained on the children, the meals, the small chores, but the subtle changes in the environment, the shift of light in the upper atmosphere, the faint hum of energy through the ground, and the sporadic interference in long-range communications signaled something deeper. Across star systems, advanced civilizations had begun to take note of this seemingly insignificant planet, a place marked by innocuous activity, yet under the radar of careful observation, it became clear that something remarkable was occurring. The children nurtured by humans were growing not just in knowledge or strength, but in the unspoken understanding that patience, care, and structured guidance could yield results unimaginable to those who relied solely on power.
And though he moved with the same quiet determination, unaware of the cosmic significance of his work, his presence created a hub of stability that attracted allies, observers, and even opportunists from the galaxy's far reaches, each drawn not by coercion, but by the aura of reliability, empathy, and precise action that emanated from his daily routines. When the first incursion happened, it was sudden. Alien scouts, sleek vessels designed to assess potential threats, appeared in orbit without warning, probing sensors and scanning the settlement. The human, as always, maintained focus. Meals were delivered, children were guided, routine continued. Yet every glance toward the sky, every adjustment of supplies, every careful monitoring of behavior carried a latent readiness, a preparedness that no alien algorithm could fully quantify. In the orbital observatory, the mother watched in silence as her careful measurements confirmed what she had already suspected. This human's approach to care, discipline, and observation had produced not just survival, but dominance. Dominance of influence, control, and tactical advantage that no overt display of power could rival. When the scouts transmitted signals of observation, assessing, calculating, the settlement remained calm, unshaken, yet each movement within it, how the children responded, how resources were adjusted, how timing was maintained, demonstrated a coordination and strategic awareness far beyond what would be expected from ordinary humans or alien races unfamiliar with the subtleties of adaptive instinct. This was not violence, this was control, mastery over chaos, a demonstration that true power often manifests in restraint, precision, and unwavering application of principle.
The calm of the settlement shattered one morning like glass under impact. Alien warships, sleek, metallic, and bristling with unseen energy weapons, appeared above the hidden human enclave without warning. The usual morning routines of meals, laughter, and careful teaching continued for the children, but beneath the surface, every human action carried readiness, discipline, and unspoken strategy honed over decades of survival and adaptation. Hands that once folded fruit or poured steaming rations now gripped control panels, activated hidden communication nodes, and engaged defensive protocols that were invisible to the untrained eye. The humans did not panic. They did not shout orders. Their very stillness communicated confidence, control, and an understanding that the rules of engagement were theirs to define. Across orbital space, the alien commanders expected fear, resistance, or even submission, but received none. Instead, they were confronted with precision, anticipation, and coordination so refined it defied comprehension. Every sensor reading, every calculated trajectory of the alien fleet, every projected energy discharge met the counterbalance of humans who had never sought glory, but who understood the language of consequences, the arithmetic of survival, and the power of patience applied with deliberate intent. Even the children, unaware of the magnitude of the situation, followed routines instinctively, guided by subtle signals, gentle hand gestures, and unspoken authority that knit the enclave into a single organism, a network of coordinated actions that anticipated every alien maneuver, every potential threat before it manifested. As the alien vessels began to maneuver, attempting to encircle the settlement or force compliance through intimidation, the humans revealed layers of preparation that had been invisible to scanners, hidden from orbiting eyes, and unsuspected by any intelligence system in the galaxy. Shielding mechanisms activated with near-silent hums, energy fields shimmered across the settlement's surface, and auxiliary defensive nodes concealed beneath soil, rock, and constructed terrain extended outward like tendrils of invisible influence. The aliens expected surrender protocols or perhaps a token communication, but what they received instead was the meticulous, methodical response of a species who had learned long ago that action without reason was folly, yet reason without action was worse. Each human movement, each adjustment of supplies, each glance towards the children carried a dual purpose: to nurture life and to assert control, not through fear,
but through unbreakable order, calm dominance, and readiness that transcended the conventional definitions of warfare. The aliens had underestimated the quiet power of discipline, of structured empathy, and of a species whose survival instincts had been honed by generations of internal conflict, catastrophe, and rebuilding. They were about to learn that the true measure of strength was not in the size of fleets, the intensity of weaponry, or the scale of destruction one could inflict, but in the invisible architecture of strategic thought, foresight, and resilience applied with surgical precision. Suddenly, the first warning shots were fired, not as an act of aggression, but as a test. A distant energy discharge aimed at the perimeter was absorbed without loss. Alien sensors flickered, misread, and adjusted, yet every new measurement continued to encounter the same anomaly: humans who did not panic, did not retreat, and did not falter. Instead, they adapted. Defenses reoriented, countermeasures engaged, and subtle disruptions in alien energy propagation created a battlefield in which the invaders' assumptions began to fail. The settlement, appearing innocuous from space, revealed hidden infrastructure that no casual scan could detect: armored platforms, concealed energy projectors, rapid response units, and observation arrays whose purpose was both protective and pedagogical. Humans moved through these networks with silent precision, not shouting, not gesturing wildly, but communicating in glances, timed gestures, and protocols that had become second nature over decades. Each child under their care remained protected, each supply cache accounted for, each vector of potential attack anticipated. By the time the aliens realized that the humans were not simply defending, but controlling the battlefield itself, the battle had already shifted into an arena where conventional superiority no longer mattered. Then came the revelation that would reverberate across galactic history. From hidden launch bays, human vessels, not large enough to be considered capital ships, but perfectly engineered for the purpose, entered orbital space in synchronized precision. They moved with the elegance of coordinated choreography, surrounding alien ships in formations that anticipated every defensive response, every evasive maneuver, every energy discharge. The humans did not aim to destroy indiscriminately. They aimed to neutralize, contain, and establish dominance without unnecessary carnage. And yet the effect was immediate and terrifying. Alien fleets faltered, weapons misfired, communication networks jammed, and command hierarchies collapsed as the unseen, methodical, and relentless pressure applied by the humans demonstrated a mastery of engagement that no algorithm or alien doctrine had predicted. Across the settlement, the human who had once simply prepared lunches for alien children observed calmly, directing operations with subtle commands, gestures, and protocols that had become second nature over decades. Each child under their care remained protected, each supply cache accounted for, each vector of potential attack anticipated. By the time the aliens realized that the humans were not simply defending, but controlling the battlefield itself, the battle had already shifted into an arena where conventional superiority no longer mattered. Then came the revelation that would reverberate across galactic history. From hidden launch bays, human vessels, not large enough to be considered capital ships, but perfectly engineered for the purpose, entered orbital space in synchronized precision. They moved with the elegance of coordinated choreography, surrounding alien ships in formations that anticipated every defensive response, every evasive maneuver, every energy discharge. The humans did not aim to destroy indiscriminately. They aimed to neutralize, contain, and establish dominance without unnecessary carnage. And yet the effect was immediate and terrifying. Alien fleets faltered, weapons misfired, communication networks jammed, and command hierarchies collapsed as the unseen, methodical, and relentless pressure applied by the humans demonstrated a mastery of engagement that no algorithm or alien doctrine had predicted. Across the settlement, the human who had once simply prepared lunches for alien children observed calmly, directing operations with subtle commands, gestures, and protocols that had become second nature over decades. Each child under their care remained protected, each supply cache accounted for, each vector of potential attack anticipated. By the time the aliens realized that the humans were not simply defending, but controlling the battlefield itself, the battle had already shifted into an arena where conventional superiority no longer mattered. Then came the revelation that would reverberate across galactic history. From hidden launch bays, human vessels, not large enough to be considered capital ships, but perfectly engineered for the purpose, entered orbital space in synchronized precision. They moved with the elegance of coordinated choreography, surrounding alien ships in formations that anticipated every defensive response, every evasive maneuver, every energy discharge. The humans did not aim to destroy indiscriminately. They aimed to neutralize, contain, and establish dominance without unnecessary carnage. And yet the effect was immediate and terrifying. Alien fleets faltered, weapons misfired, communication networks jammed, and command hierarchies collapsed as the unseen, methodical, and relentless pressure applied by the humans demonstrated a mastery of engagement that no algorithm or alien doctrine had predicted. Across the settlement, the human who had once simply prepared lunches for alien children observed calmly, directing operations with subtle commands, gestures, and protocols that had become second nature over decades. Each child under their care remained protected, each supply cache accounted for, each vector of potential attack anticipated. By the time the aliens realized that the humans were not simply defending, but controlling the battlefield itself, the battle had already shifted into an arena where conventional superiority no longer mattered.
The aftermath of the engagement was both silent and deafening across the galaxy. The alien fleets, once confident in their supremacy and accustomed to enforcing obedience through fear, had been systematically neutralized, their command structures shattered, their weapons rendered ineffective, and their protocols exposed as insufficient against the calm, calculated precision of humanity. Across distant systems, sensors recorded anomalies that defied previous understanding, fleets vanishing without dramatic explosions, orbital stations incapacitated without catastrophic destruction, and communications rendered useless not by brute force, but by a mastery of timing, coordination, and technological ingenuity that humans had cultivated in quiet obscurity. On the hidden blue planet, the man who'd spent decades preparing meals for alien children observed the aftermath without fanfare, without exultation, understanding that the work of protection and preservation was far more important than the thrill of victory. Each child under his care remained unharmed, their trust and innocence intact, because humanity's greatest strength was not in destruction, but in restraint, discipline, and the unwavering commitment to safeguard life, even amidst chaos. The mother, observing from orbit, finally allowed herself to smile. The seemingly ordinary human, by the measure of galactic history, had become extraordinary through deeds that were invisible, strategic, and profoundly effective, shaping outcomes that would ripple across civilizations, empires, and alliances for generations to come. The ripple effects were immediate. Galactic councils convened in emergency sessions, their centuries-old hierarchies shaken by the realization that a species once considered primitive had demonstrated a capacity for control, discipline, and strategic action that surpassed expectations. No longer could assumptions about technological inferiority dictate policy. Humans had shown that intelligence, patience, and methodical action could redefine power itself. Across star systems, observers documented the engagement in unprecedented detail, analyzing the human tactics, the restraint shown in engagement, and the subtle coordination that had ensured minimal loss of life while achieving total operational dominance. Scholars, military strategists, and philosophers alike struggled to reconcile the contradiction. How could a species capable of immense destructive power exercise it with such discretion?
How could ordinary humans, unremarkable by galactic standards, manifest strategy so sophisticated, empathy so precise, and discipline so absolute? Every simulation, every historical model, every theoretical projection failed to capture the reality demonstrated that day. Humanity did not seek conquest, glory, or vengeance. Humanity sought balance, protection, and the preservation of life, wielding power not as a weapon to dominate, but as a shield to prevent harm. News of the event spread, quietly at first, through encrypted channels and discreet reports, then more broadly as diplomats and emissaries acknowledged the unprecedented display. Humans did not boast, did not issue ultimatums, and did not demand recognition. Instead, they continued their routines, maintained their alliances, and tended to life where it mattered most, within the settlements, among those they nurtured, and in the careful stewardship of relationships that would define the next era of galactic interaction. Each act of compassion, every disciplined response to threat, and every hidden intervention in crises became a blueprint for survival and governance that other civilizations could study, admire, and, if fortunate, emulate. The alien commanders, once confident and mocking, now recorded the day as a moment of reckoning. A species underestimated by history had redefined the rules of engagement, the perception of strength, and the essence of leadership across the stars. Humanity's influence, quiet yet formidable, spread not through conquest, but through demonstration of skill, resolve, and ethical power applied with unwavering precision. And on the planet where the man continued to prepare lunches for alien children, life carried on as if nothing extraordinary had occurred. Yet in every gesture, every quiet interaction, every measured action, the galaxy's future was being quietly shaped. The humans had proven that true strength lay not in the visible, loud, and destructive acts often glorified in war, but in the invisible, calm, and disciplined application of power where it mattered most. Across star systems, alliances shifted, treaties were reconsidered, and a new paradigm emerged. If humans were present, they would act decisively, protect the vulnerable, and enforce balance without need for spectacle or boast. The galaxy learned, collectively and reluctantly, that underestimated compassion, discipline, and intelligence were forces more terrifying and more enduring than fleets, superweapons, or ancient protocols. And in this quiet, deliberate manner, humanity wrote its legacy, not as conquerors, not as tyrants, but as guardians of life, architects of balance, and silent arbiters whose presence alone ensured that no species, empire, or ruler would ever act with unchecked impunity again. The children, blissfully unaware of the cosmic events unfolding around them, smiled, ate, and grew, because when humans intervened, the universe itself had no choice but to listen.